Good evening on the East Coast of America. This morning it is 10 a.m. in Sydney, Australia, where I am live reporting on the International Astronautical Congress, the 76th International Astronautical Congress, by the way. A lot of great things going on, of course, in the world of space and space development and space everything. It's like the Super Bowl of conferences. There's about 8,000 people showed up for this thing already. There'll probably be another 6 showing up in the coming days. Of course, with all the great stories that are going on, all the great things for us to attend, of course, what do? I find the weirdest, strangest story that I feel very compelled to report to you about because it's just odd. I don't know why this is happening. It is an ongoing story, and we will be covering that going forward. Until then, from the news desk, the Center for Space, Commerce, and Finance, my name is Thomas Andrew Olson, and this is The Unknown Quantity. And of course, as you know, this program is sponsored by the Center for Space, Commerce, and Finance. And of course, you know what we do. We champion space startups and investor ideas all across the funding spectrum, all around the world when we can. And in fact, we just introduced 8 new companies just a few days ago as part of the Space Generation Congress. So you'll be hearing more about that. We're a 501c3 nonprofit in the United States. And so if you go to our page, it says support, and you click the link that says donate. A little in the tip jar each month makes a whole lot of difference for all the programs that we do. And so we thank you in advance for that. So I want to now introduce my best space friend of all time and occasional space elevator cult leader, Michael Lane. There he is. How you doing, man? Okay, he is completely without sound.
How about now?
Now, there you go.
I had sound a minute ago when we did our sound check.
Is it going to be one of those days again for us?
Apparently, it's going to be one of those shows. That is the fun and the challenging live shows.
Yes, it is.
We just did sound checks a moment ago.
I know. I'm doing all right, other than
how you doing? How's Australia?
Yeah, it's the first day of the conference, so I spent the whole day, 12 hours or more in the wrong shoes, and now my feet hurt. But the good news is I don't have to do anything formal until Wednesday night again, so I can, I can get around in my sneaks and get away with it.
Right on.
And besides that, I told you I bit my tongue the other day during lunch, and now it's like it hurts to swallow, hurts to even talk sometimes. So I'm going to let you guys carry most of this today, just so I can get through the rest of the day. But there's a couple of things going on. First, they had a really lovely, opening session. They did a lot of native type stuff. They had, dancing and all the music and all these incredible things. And they always do that opening session. It really underscores, the culture of the country and a lot of the things they have to offer. And that was really fun. Clay Mowry did a nice going away speech. He is the outgoing president of IAF, and he's done his 3 years, and he's ready to, hit the ground and do other things. He wouldn't talk about what he wanted quite to do yet, because I talked to him. He's got a bunch of irons in the fire, and he's got to pick which one. He's still involved in AIAA and a couple of other little projects, but he hasn't really decided which direction he's going to formally go yet. But he did a pretty good job as a good caretaker of IAF during all this time. Since we are a member organization, I had to go to the General Assembly yesterday afternoon for about 3
Mhm.
hours.
Yeah.
And what we did was, well, obviously we talked about the finances, and it's in the black and everything's fine. And then we listened to pitches from 3 countries that want to host the IAC in 2028.
Okay.
This is how these people get picked. And so,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think one is Kyrgyzstan and one is India, and there's another group from Bahrain. So
I would be pretty interested in Bahrain
I,
and
yeah,
India.
I
Yeah.
have been, yeah. Kyrgyzstan wasn't so much. I was, India is just a little, I don't know. It's a little India for me. It's a little crowded, and it's a little.
You,
It was really overwhelming with techie stuff, and their presentation had all of these things. We're building all these rockets, and blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
But Bahrain, they do have a space sector there. They have it. They
Yeah.
have an incredible history. They're like at the crossroads of trade
Yep.
between the Middle East and Europe, and have been for 1,000 years or more.
They were on
And they,
one of
but
the
they're
original
very,
entrepreneurs.
very modern, and they have all this incredible infrastructure, and they 126,000 square meters of space that they can host a conference at, and all the tech is brand new, and the connectivity is brand new and hardcore, and they're ready to do it. And something about it just fascinated me because they're very, very proud of the fact that they're a very tolerant country, and they and everybody gets along.
Yep.
And you have mosques next to temples, next to churches, and it's
1,000-year-old mosques next to
been that way
1,000-year-old
for
temples
1,000
next to
Yeah.
1,000-year-old churches. I love that about it. I'm particularly interested. The Emiratis have done a lot to start focusing on Mars as their
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what Bahrain is doing. They don't have a giant ecosystem the way India has, but there's definitely been a lot of invitations. I've probably gotten 5 invitations
Mhm.
to go to conferences out there in that part of the world. So I'm curious to see what they do there. India's program is top notch. I definitely would
It
like
is.
to see that also.
I am still, but I'm
Kyrgyzstan,
still mulling it over.
what's happening? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
still mulling it over. The
Yeah.
final. We have another session on Friday morning,
Okay.
and that's when we actually vote on it.
Okay.
And so they made their presentations yesterday, and now I'm kind of thinking about them. If I run into these people again, I'm probably going to ask them some questions, and then.
What did Kyrgyzstan have to say? I mean, honestly, I don't know that much about that program at all.
Yeah.
Do I remember my geography right? Isn't that where Baikonur is? The old Soviet launch base?
Baikonur's in Kazakhstan, but they're right next door.
Kazakhstan. All right. See, I just said my geography.
But I can't remember I can't remember the name of the city they want to do, but I guess the famous one, Tashkent, is not too far away. You can take tours over there and see the history there. They really focus on the history there. That's their biggest thing. Aiden is with us. Hi, Aiden. Welcome. The best track of topic at IAC, I couldn't really tell you. They're all excellent. They all cover a wide range of endeavor, whether it's satellite communications or space policy globally or a bunch of other things. I mean, me personally, there's a whole bunch of different presentations I want to attend in multiple tracks that have mostly to do with either investment or entrepreneurship, business development. That's what my focus is. Because you can't see everything. You just can't. Something that big. But
Aiden, last week you asked a question in the chat about the difference between IAC and ISDC, International Space Development Conference. They're night and day. I mean, you could fit every single person in ISDC, the National Space Society's ISDC. You could fit every single person into one room of IAC. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they do that. There are 1,000-person and 800-person auditoriums packed to the gills at IAC. Would you say, Tom, 6,000 people are there now and 6,000 more are coming? Is that what you said?
Something like that. Because they have they started doing it a few years ago. They have a free day.
Okay.
When people from just, the local hosting city are allowed in for a free day to just kind of walk around and go to the exhibit hall and see a bunch of things and see that in action. So yeah, that could double on Thursday.
Nice. That's
Just
fun.
Thursday.
Cool.
Yeah, that's going
Cool.
to be amazing.
Right on.
But of course, with all the stories I could talk about, I came upon the weird one.
Okay. What you got?
Okay, remember our friend Kwang Han K from Taiwan?
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
Texas?
Oh,
He builds
I saw that
electronic-
on LinkedIn. Please tell
He
that.
builds
Yeah.
electronic shops. Well, I saw him at the reception, the special reception last night. And
Yeah.
before all those things happened on LinkedIn, he was telling me about this. And he had his big display. He has this little postage stamp sized, booth area, not far from the big JAXA thing, right? And he's set up there, and it's all set up, and it's all good. All of a sudden, he started getting these weird and quasi-threatening emails from the organizers. Something about a flag or something, and it was, and he didn't even know what they were talking about at first.
Okay.
And they said, and then they finally said, "Well, see us at 9:00 in the morning," which was yesterday. Okay, because the exhibition hall didn't open until noon. So I thought, okay, we'll figure it out. 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
And so apparently there's one of the images on his display had embedded within it some postage stamp size Taiwan flag. Well, he shows up at 9 in the morning to talk to these people. His display is already gone. It's been seized. It's been taken away.
Wow.
And that's why you got that picture on LinkedIn this morning. He's pointing at the empty space where his display used to be.
That's crazy.
I'm going to go down and pose with him for a picture later, just in solidarity with him. But I also hope to get I'm going to do a little quick video interview.
Okay. Yeah.
So we can tell the story and maybe have something we can play. We can post somewhere or even play it on the next show.
So
this is a weird issue that's ongoing and ain't going away.
So it was not Chinese authorities who confiscated his display. It was the IAC committee.
It was the organizers of the IAC committee, organizers for the conference. And so they, in my view, me, Mr. Free Speech American, they have something to answer for.
I would lose my mind
when they're all about diversity, equity, and wait for it, inclusion.
Right, except if you got the wrong flag.
Right now, you can argue the others, but inclusion, I'm all in.
Yeah,
and why can't Taiwan be there and say, we're Taiwan? So the only thing, if the organizers are doing this, they don't do that in a vacuum. I have to just theorize.
No, somebody had to. That was a decision.
Yeah. Someone else made that decision, and the influence is being felt. And that worries me. And I'm going to dig into this until I get an answer.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I'll probably get in trouble. Oh, God, here we go again,
Yeah.
You're right, Sean. A deep pocket made a deep move. That's just
crazy.
Absolutely sad.
All right. Well, I'm only going to move. I'm going to kind of cancel some of the news that I had today. I'm just going to make one post.
Okay.
Remember 2-3 weeks ago, I said this is going to be the biggest story of the year, and I said it was SpaceX with $19 billion. Yep. It's Oktoberfest. Hold my beer. Germany is doing a $41 billion investment into space. Do you see, like how I did that? You see how I just kind of slid that in there?
Yep, I slid there.
I think that's pretty crazy. All right, so put that. This is over several years. I think it's 7 years. 5 years. 5 years. They're going to blur the lines between cybersecurity and space security, but still, $41 billion. Well, that makes this the story of the year. I knew some folks at the, DLR, I think is their space agency.
DLR.
This is not necessarily DLR money. This is a lot of combination with the their equivalent of the defense coalitions. So the German Space Command. Like, I think that's really interesting, and I wonder what that's going to look like 5 years from now, 25 years from now. So anyway, I had other news, but we talked a lot, so let's go ahead and move on with our day.
We have actually two great guests today.
Yep.
The first one is our third and final winner of the micro grant in the elevator pitch competition that last Thursday as part of SGC. His name is Maciej Grybko. He is a PhD student at the University of Southern Queensland, developing rotating detonation engines, which he's going to talk about. And he recently started his own company called Equilibrium Aerospace, looking to commercialize that research. He wants to develop cost-effective solutions to supersonic flight. He's previously studied the Illinois Institute of Technology and University of Leeds, and he has extensive experience in leading student rocketry teams and developing high-power rockets as well as solid rocket motors. Maciej, welcome.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you're based.
Tom, give a little... Yeah, right, exactly. Tom, give a little bit of background about the competition and the center's role in it, so the folks that weren't here last week know what we're talking about.
Just so you know, we hosted something called an elevator pitch competition at the Space Generation Congress last Thursday afternoon, where eight teams got up and had a couple of slides, and they had 3 minutes to give their best pitch for their business idea. And then the judges decided who the best three presenters were, and we gave them each a $1,000 micro grant from the Center of Space Commerce and Finance and our sponsors. So Maciej was the third and final winner of that competition. He couldn't come on the other day because he was already on his way home to go back to work on his dream, and so but he was willing to take some time to be with us this morning, and I really am happy to have you here. So tell us, Maciej, about your journey. How did you get to be where you are, and what is your primary focus that gets you up in the morning and get you all excited?
Yeah, thanks so much. Well, first of all, thanks for the micro grant. I'm really grateful for it. My journey, I don't know where to start. It's been a long journey. Well, because I always had interest in mathematics, and pretty early on I decided what I want to do, and that was specifically propulsion systems. I didn't know back then what kind of propulsion exactly, because I was hesitating between jet engines and rocket engines, but it was pretty narrowed down early on. So initially I was studying at the University of Leeds, where I did my bachelor's, and my engineering journey pretty much started with involvement in a Formula SAE club, where we built race cars for competition, and then we raced against other teams. That was very important. Like, if I could make a recommendation to anyone in my shoes, any upcoming engineering student, I think the most important thing in your development is participation in those student challenges, where you actually get to build something. There's no other way to really acquire some practical experience. Nevertheless, my interests were more aligned with aerospace industry. So later I got to Illinois Institute of Technology, where I did my master's. And there was no rocketry club at that university back then. So I decided, well, I need to start my own club. There's no other way. If I want to do rockets, I need to build rockets. It was fun. Like, I remember when I started my journey with rocketry, I studied a lot, read lots of books and stuff. But I needed to get to a launch site to launch actual rocket. And it was funny times because I didn't have a car, it was difficult to move around. So I actually hitchhiked my first rocket launch. I literally I went to a gas station and asked people like, "Hey guys, I want to launch a rocket. Would you drive me, 10 miles in that direction or something?" So I was walking to people for about 20 minutes, something like that. And eventually I found that one guy, electrical engineer, who was like very, very passionate, very enthusiastic. He said like, "Hey, you know what? I'm going in the opposite direction, but you know what? Let's go. I'm gonna give you a ride, because why not?"
Right on.
And obviously I hitchhike on my way back. But that was very fundamental, because that's where was the first time when I saw it with my eyes, what actual rockets look like. It was on an amateur scale, but yeah, later on I think it allowed me to do beautiful things. So fast forward a couple of years later, I got into Australia, to University of Southern Queensland, where I work on a very novel propulsion technology called rotating detonation engines.
Yeah, I know that was one of your slides. You showed us, you built a model of this thing and showed it at work. I mean, he actually built this hardware, Michael. It was pretty amazing to look at. We'll try to get some pictures out there one of these days to see this. But you started this company because you think there's a way to commercialize this for supersonics or hypersonics, or
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we did build a fundamental model. We tested in our hypersonic wind tunnel in Toowoomba, and I think it's a pretty big achievement, because there are actually two configurations of this engine. You can either test it in a rocket configuration, which means that you have to supply oxidizer. And actually the rocket configuration is easier to test because you don't need a wind tunnel for that. But if you want to test it in a jet engine, you need a highly specialized facility. And there are maybe 5 facilities in the world where you could test such an engine. And we're just lucky to have one here in Australia. So we tested it in Mach 4. That's roughly 4,000 kilometers per hour, 2,500 miles per hour. And we got it working. We got pretty decent performance out of it. And some of the advantages of this engine is that, first of all, it's optimized for supersonic, hypersonic speeds, so it can fly much faster than traditional jet engines. Secondly, it's more efficient, and it's also very compact. Like, you can achieve the same levels of thrust with much smaller engine, and therefore you induce much lower aerodynamic drag. And it's simple in construction. It has no moving parts. You don't need compressors, you don't need turbines.
Yeah.
You achieve sufficient compression, just like ramjets do, from the same effect, just simply from ramming supersonic air into an intake.
Wow.
So there's a lot
of fuel do you run this on?
The prototype that we tested was running on hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there are a lot of potential benefits, and I believe this technology can finally enable affordable supersonic flight. Supersonic flight is nothing new. Like, we had Concorde, right, back in 70s.
Right.
This aircraft was operating for about 30 years. So like, there's no doubt that it's technologically feasible. It was feasible back then, 50 years ago, but it wasn't financially viable. It wasn't making money back then. That's because of huge fuel consumption. Sorry.
Market conditions and fuel, right? Yeah.
It was strictly problems with propulsion technology, but I believe with this new technology we can finally make it financially feasible, where fuel consumption is not that high, and you can charge reasonable price for supersonic flight tickets. So I think it's a matter of about 20 years before we'll be able to, let's say, fly to Europe from Australia, in 4 hours.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And a lot of companies are working on that. You can see there are more and more companies emerging, testing different technologies.
Okay. What does 5 years out look like?
For us, for
Let's
Equilibrium,
assume it works. Let's assume it works, and
yes.
we're going to start commercializing it. What does 5 years out look like?
Yeah, for us at Equilibrium, we are looking to develop a relatively small product for a niche market. So we are thinking of a supersonic testbed propelled by one of these engines, specifically for defense testing.
Okay.
I believe a lot of these technologies, they first find application in defense, and once you demonstrate its technological feasibility, then you can scale it up and use in commercial applications as well.
Yeah. Something we do, and we have short time. Something I wanted to bring up, because you and I talked about this a couple of days ago, was one of the reasons you went to Queensland to finish your education and get your doctorate and actually work on this, this engine. You would have loved to have stayed in the United States, but there's something stopped you. What was that?
For me, sorry?
Yeah. Well, I'll say the word ITAR.
ITAR, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess like every propulsion engineer who's not a US citizen has this dream of working from NASA or SpaceX, and I was no different, but ITAR was a big obstacle for me. Like I remember I went to the IAC about 5 years ago. It was happening in US, in Washington DC back then. And had the pleasure to meet Peter Beck, the CEO of Rocket Lab, and ask him for a potential internship opportunity. And yeah, he told me the same thing, ITAR, this is like no way around it. So back then I was disappointed, but actually now I'm grateful for it, because if I worked for NASA or SpaceX, I would probably settle down and wouldn't have an ambition to start my own company. Whereas now I get to work on a game-changing technology.
I said something the other day when the other two winners of the microgrant came on. I said that ITAR is the best thing to happen to other nations' space programs. Like we did it to ourselves. We did it to ourselves. The best and brightest came here, wanted to do something, and then we're like, nope, not interested. Go back home. And it's the worst policy. Nobody that I know of likes ITAR. I don't know why it still exists after 25 years.
Like historically, when you think about rockets industry, aerospace industry development, US was very much relying on foreign talent. You all probably heard about Werner von Braun, a German scientist who was basically a precursor in the development of rockets.
Yeah.
So
all right, so now, 5 years from now you've got go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, well, Morty has a question. He's just throwing out this idea, will supersonic be necessary in 20 years?
If you're doing point-to-point suborbital, doesn't that take the place of supersonic?
Yeah, I mean, tricky question. So,
I think it depends on price.
Depends on price. Depends how far you're flying. If you just want to fly from whatever LA to New York, you probably wouldn't get out of atmosphere. You probably wouldn't get on an orbital flight. But yeah, generally, flying jet, whether it's supersonic, it will be cheaper, much cheaper than flying a rocket. Doing a suborbital flight by rocket, because rockets are characterized by high thrust. They can really get you out there. They can get you out of the atmosphere. Whereas jet engines, they are characterized by higher efficiency. So if you're looking into cheap flights, jets are the way to go.
Cool.
Yeah, because if it's only $1,200 for one of these jets to go halfway around the world or more, versus $12,000 for a ticket for
Right.
point-to-point suborbital. How bad do you want to save that time?
Yeah. I believe there's market for both,
Yeah, but one's like this and one's like this,
Right.
Yeah.
Right on.
All right. Well, we have to continue on. Maciej Gripko, thank you so much for coming on. And we'll be having you back again when you have some more progress.
Thanks. Pleasure.
Okay.
Looking forward to telling you more in the future.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks so much. Okay. See you soon. Our next guest, we're having some connectivity problems this morning for some reason, but we're going to try to address those on the fly. Our next guest, of course, is Morgan Jennings-Woods. She's a consultant on regulatory compliance and legal strategy on DoD contract governance, risk mitigation, corporate integrity. She's a law student and besides, and she works for Belcan Government Solutions, specializes in legal strategy, contract governance, risk management. But she's a big fan of space industrialization and commercialization, and we're going to have a chat about that and maybe some mining and a lot of other things that we talk about on the legal and regulatory side of things. So Morgan Jennings-Woods, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Oh, great. Yeah, well, great to have you. As we usually do, we also ask about how did you get here? What's your origin story? What got you excited about space? And how did you go in the direction that you're going?
Sure. So I work in the defense industry, as you said, and the Space Force really intrigued me, to be honest. And once I started, communicating more with them and going to events, I was able to go to the Space Law Conference in Colorado Springs, and it really showed me how much there is to be done still. It's a completely clean slate, especially in the law and policy making. It's fresh. There's no precedent. And it was something that really sparked my interest. And I wanted to be a part of this huge historical swing. And after that, I was just very much so reading everything as I could. And my husband, he has generations of mining here, and so that I've always been interested in the mining aspect of it. So as soon as I figured out how to do more research on the space front, it really it just took off from there. So I'm all in, and I'm really excited for the future of it.
Do either you or your husband have a military background?
I do. No, neither of us do. No.
No. Okay. I'm a former U.S. Marine, but my dad did 33 years in the Army. My mom did 3 years in the Army. Aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. So when Space Force came along, I was like, "Yay!" I was so happy about Space Force. But I actually am a tiny bit surprised that you didn't have any sort of a military background before you got interested in it. So that's a little bit unusual.
Yeah. It is. I would say so. Where I'm at, it's a pretty rural area, and I knew out of undergrad. Well, one, I knew eventually I was going into law. When I didn't know,
Okay.
I don't want to say thankfully for COVID, but thankfully after that, ABA accredited, some part-time and online programs that weren't even considered beforehand. So I was able to do that sooner rather than later, or hopefully, I guess. But anyway, so how I got into the defense industry is really just for the contracting part. And I really think that, I have, you can't see behind me right now. I have a coin that I got from someone from the Air Force Academy when I was at the Space Law Conference. I actually was on a shuttle back to Denver to go fly back home, and realized that he had an Air Force symbol on, and we're talking about what we both did, and he asked why I did it. And I think it truly brings some sense of importance to what I do, even in the minor aspects of it, right? Like services or anything that can potentially help, our whole department of, well, I guess it's Department of War now, but yes, anyone within there, I just really think that it brings me a sense of pride in what I do, and it fuels me. So
those challenge coins are a big deal. So keep them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I was planning on talking to you about space mining, but let's stick with Space Force for a little bit longer. They're about almost 6 years ago now, 5 years for sure. There was an argument happening at the Pentagon at the earliest days of Space Force, and it was the Blues versus Browns. And in Navy terms, that's brown water. I'm a former U.S. Marine, so all Marines operate in brown water near the shore, right? And then submarines and aircraft carriers, they operate deep out in the blue ocean. And so they're trying to figure out how do they apply those doctrines to Space Force. And it was very clearly, everybody's paying attention to near shore, meaning near Earth. So Leo, Meo, Geo got all the funding, all the budget, all the consideration. Beyond that, into the deep ocean of space, no not a lot of consideration. So I was wondering, I was getting there, Tom. I gotcha. I was wondering, did you have like any particular interest in what was driving you towards Space Force? Like, you're going to go to the Space Power Conference. What are you interested in with Space Force?
Well, I think it's just solely because of my passion for space policy in general. And then also the company that I work for, Belkin Government Solutions, which is a cognizant company, we aren't quite, don't have any awards as of now for the Space Force. It's really difficult to get them, especially for being a larger company. They're really leaning towards smaller companies, which goes into a lot of what I was going to talk about space mining and the industry in general. It's really focused on, small businesses, as it should be, because there are a lot of startups and a lot of specialty cases, but nonetheless. And anyway, that was my goal actually for the end of this year, is to make those connections, and I've made strides with that. And I think just the defense policy in general, it's more towards the warfare, policy making, but we're not really supposed to be having any wars in space, but we have to always be prepared. And I think that they're making strides, like I said, and a lot of academia was there too, and just truly some profound conversations happening. And I really like what the Space Force is doing right now and preparing for anything and everything. And there's the general population that doesn't know much about what Space Force is, so they thought it was kind of silly, but I tried to promote as much as possible. Like, this is a very much real threat, with foreign satellites and the Russian the tension between Russia and China, especially in space. And then let alone we have, Article 6 and 7, the US government's going to the commercial space activity. So there, and that if a commercial, spacecraft bumps into another one and there's some issues, it's going to be something that they're going to have to put up with. So anyway, there's a lot of ambiguity within that, but nonetheless, I think that Space Force has reins, and so the JAGs, and then also just working with the Congress as well.
Awesome.
Okay. I'd like to bring up. Okay, Dr. Doug Plata has a question for you here. I think it's germane. It's a conversation because you talk about industrialization. You talk about mining a lot, and so I presume mining, everywhere. And so, what defines space mining to you? Is it like mining here, like Dr. Plata describes, or is there something else going on?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So there's two types of mining, in my opinion, that are potentially that could happen right now. There's non-metals, so water, carbon dioxide, and then there's also metal, like precious metals. So that'd be more like the um, platinum or anything that's within the asteroids. And so this mining, there's two routes that can go. And one would be mining water off the moon for fuel for these rockets, for propulsion, actually. And one that would be sustainable. It's a sustainable kind of propulsion. And actually, it was really interesting to hear the conversation earlier, because that's another part of my really deep research, is actually trying to, get away from the greenhouse emissions from launches and reentries and whatnot. So anyway, that plays into the mining of the moon, and that will help the NASA or any other research and the government to go further into space. So that would be kind of like a fueling station, and then continuing on. That's kind of one area. Another area is the actual asteroids right now. So those are the two options. Of course, there's probably more out there, but we just can't get to them yet. So the start is mining water off the moon. Second is the asteroids. So that would be more of mining metals. One asteroid that can have enough metals within it to sustain human conception rates as of right now for billions of years. And that is huge. And so it's really just being able to grasp that concept. And speaking of heavy equipment, that was something else that I was going to get into as well. I think that the bigger companies right now, like Komatsu or Joy Equipment, they've been in the industry for years for mining here, coal mining, and I think that them partnering either. I mean, you can go with a merger. So this is going right into your finance topic right now. You can go into a merger. You can go as a partnership. Right now, the U.S. government can't put out any solicitations for this. Like, they can't have any say in it because of the Outer Space Treaty, actually. And then, so it's really, they're trying to promote. That's why they're so pushing the commercial spaces, because they want them to do it. And I think it's going to be a partnership of, while we have these people that have equipment, you have the low gravity has to be, they have to have like actual, experts within that industries in space. So I think the partnerships are going to have to merge together, because the startups aren't going to have enough money to come up with these products and equipment, and then getting that equipment there too. So I don't think it's really going to be much of a like human. When you think of mining, you think of humans, underground or in strip mines or anything like that. This is going to be anonymous. This is also probably going to play into AI too. I think that's going to have a lot of help with it.
Yeah, I think the AI is going to be necessary. I know the folks working at Offworld they've built 2 robots that are actually operational in mines now. They're not trying to build fragile, carefully designed systems. They're carefully designed, but they're not fragile, right? They've got to operate in an industrial mining environment. I am curious to see where they go with that, and if they can translate that tech, down here on the ground. Because
another issue would be to.
Go ahead.
Another issue would be getting those products down back to Earth's atmosphere. So yeah, that would either be like processing them there, or taking the actual raw materials, raw products, and somehow getting them back. And how many re-entries and launches are we going to have?
Yeah, Sean is really interested. Our producer is really interested in down mass and bringing, how do we get stuff home? But most of us in our team really think that, quote, 90% of what's mined up in space will stay there. That's Tom's quote. And I do think that that's going to be the case. Morty's always pushing the space elevator idea. So while I'm less enthusiastic of that, I do see where he's coming from on that. Down mass is going to be key. So what kind of issues does a mining company encounter? Let's stick with the moon first, because it's a little bit easier. I think it's a little easier to understand the moon. Somebody, finds a crater, finds something interesting in it. How do they stake their claim? How do they process that? Who's gonna record that? Who's gonna protect it?
Yeah, so that is a big issue, especially with policy right now. It's finicky because the Outer Space Treaty does say that no one owns anything in space right now, but it's up for interpretation, and I think the U.S. has interpreted that as just the U.S. government and not private entities within the government, or sorry, within the U.S. And so again, that's why they're pushing so much commercial space activity. But I think that has been really it's been not making a lot of other companies very happy or trustworthy of us to do the right thing. I know there was the Moon Treaty, and not a lot of countries even signed it, so it's not a real legal doctrine right now. And so there's again a two-way path here. One, we bulldog it, and then we make the precedent for mostly just saying sorry, making that claim, figuring out how to go from there. But depending on who is upset about it country-wise, I think, again, the Space Force comes into play, because if they get too upset, there will be issues in space. And especially now that they have so many flights, I think just from us alone, I was looking at the FAA earlier today. I checked it back in March, and there was, I think, a total of 800 launches total, and now there's been over 1,000. And back in 2015, I think there were only like 15 total. So that just tells you how quickly technology is ramping up, not only within the US, but I'm sure other countries are just as much ahead of us. And it's concerning. And so I think that having the Space Force there doing their war games on home base is a real necessity. But however, I think that getting in before the regulation gets so tight that it's nearly impossible. And right now, you can really do, if you have the means and you have the funding, which the funding is so difficult to find. But you essentially could just set the space, but you don't have to worry about the liability. But going back to our Outer Space Treaty, the Article 6 and 7, the government's going to be liable for it. So a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people don't think that the commercial entities shouldn't have any liability. I agree. I think there should be a little bit of balance. And I think that doctrines right now they shouldn't necessarily be at all inclusive, right? Like that's not what they're for. And I think that paving the way, doing it now rather than keep waiting until we figure out how to do it. And as a internationally, I don't think that we have time to wait. I think it needs to be explored while we're figuring out the regulations.
Yeah,
There's
and this is
a lot
how
of
we
folks are
kind
just
of did
kicking
it.
cans down the road, right?
Well, not completely. We kind of did it in a very slow, thoughtful way when we first started AST. That subsection of the FAA that deals with the Office of Space Transportation. Now, the original guy who ran that was a guy named George Nield, and he regulated with a very, very light touch. As a result, a lot of launches were approved, a lot of things were built, a lot of things happened, and we went from an industry with $0 to about $612 billion. So going forward with that idea, yes, we all want to protect. People want to protect their mining claims. People want to protect other things out there, and you want to have a state of fairness when you're developing all this stuff. And so how heavy or light hand would you use to regulate this nascent industry? Because if you go a little too far, there's a very fine line. If you go over that fine line, you end up strangling the baby in the crib. And so George Neal wanted to avoid that, and I think he did very well at that. What's your thought?
I agree. I think it's, like you said, it's really difficult. And also because not every area of mining is the same, right? Like the moon is you're mining off of the moon, right? Like it's a one entity. So take the US for example. You know, there's property law there, you own property, but also the government, and in the Western states the government owns the mineral rights or the whatever rights that they could have to mine the oil underneath too. So who knows what's going to happen with that? I think it's so complex and so difficult to see. But then asteroids, I mean, there's so many asteroids out there. I don't know if necessarily that's going to be a single ownership or how to figure that out. But really, I mean, again, I think I've said this before, it goes down to property, environment, ownership, anything that can be figured out. It's going to be a case by case basis. And that's typically how we've done things in the past. When we're trying to figure out from the very beginning of time, I mean, from gold mining, from oil rigging, it's from coal mining, it's really all the same. But we're just starting over with a whole different atmosphere, obviously.
Well, as Sean also hinted, there is the big difference between terrestrial history up to now and what we're looking forward to in the future are the tremendous distances involved. By the time some terrestrial judge says, no, you can't do that, well, somebody on an asteroid 200 million miles away has already done it and is moved on to the next thing in many cases. And so, as Sean says, it's far easier to beg forgiveness than to ask permission. And that's probably going to be what's going to happen.
I've been wondering about this for a long time, and I don't think anybody has any concrete answers, right? Everyone is frozen. That's what Morgan says. I can see you. All of you guys are live for me. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, you're fine. I can hear you fine.
Okay. I lost connection there for a second, but Morgan seems.
Morgan cannot hear anything, she says.
Direct.
That's why she was so silent when I was waiting for a comment.
All right. What does 5 years from now look like? Morgan, see the chat? Can you answer? Because we can see you typing.
Okay, I guess you guys can hear me, so I'll just keep talking. So the question, I think, was, what does 5 years from now look like? I hope that you're speaking of space, in space, and if so, okay, I got you now. All right, awesome. I really think that is going to be more of explorations and also figuring out. I'm really worried about the outer space treaty and what the U.S. is going to do to keep the peace, but also strive for more. I don't see us mining within the next 5 years, to be completely honest. I think they're going to be building frameworks and building those machines, building the outlines, the processes to do so. I just don't think we have enough to grab an asteroid or grab pieces of it right now and do anything with it. But the thoughts there, the research is being done. And in the meantime, I think that the next step from there is going back to the bigger companies having that financial background and the capability to be able to partner with, again, the startups that are really focused in on this and work together to come up and create new equipment, new processes, new and figuring out. And I think also they're probably going to have to partner with some type of transportation to get back. So whether that's SpaceX or anyone else, because they're not going to have all three capabilities to be able to have the science backed, to mine it, and then to bring it back if it needs to. I understand that 90% of it is probably going to stay in space, but also there's a lot of research being done on taking at least the metals back, and using those for commercial. And also, what's that going to do to the U.S. economy or the international economy too? Is that going to significantly deplete the pricing for these metals that we already have? What's that going to look like, and is it going to be beneficial, or is it going to be better to use space metals instead of Earth? Or again, going back to the launching and re-entry, how many times are you going to have to do that to keep up with the demand on Earth? And is it worth it for the pollution? Because going back to the propulsion, the greenhouse gases as it is right now, I understand they're looking at nuclear powered and water and hydrosis for that kind of propulsion, but right now they're using greenhouse emissions, and it's really affecting the UV index, and there's creating an ozone layer outside of our atmosphere. So we've already dealt with that here, and we don't want to go through. We want to be really proactive. That's something that I'm very passionate about, is the proactiveness of the environment within space, because right now everyone's talking about the space debris, and it's a huge deal because it's obvious. You can see it. It's something that needs to be dealt with, and that's already passed. Now we're being reactive, but the particles from the greenhouse emissions that are blocking the UV rays and causing a layer of ozone. Policymakers have been notified of this. Aerospace company has great research on this. I highly recommend going and watching or looking at that. But policymakers think that there's not enough data right now to really do anything with regulations, and maybe not. But with the consideration of how many launches that we've had so far, and that it continues to just skyrocket, that's something that I think that needs to be figured out now rather than later.
So can you hear me? Dr. Plata was asking a question about the Artemis Accords and how they might relate to resources that have been mined. Do you have any insight to that? And we only have 2 minutes. Did you hear any of that?
Yeah, you were cutting it out, but I did hear you a little bit. I don't necessarily. I mean, the Artemis Accords are really not in favor for a lot of other countries. I mean, that really has been in place for the U.S., I believe, unless I'm not thinking of that correctly. But that is something that plays into, again, the disconnect between space mining and who can do what. But in regards to what can be mined, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's already been research. I don't think that's a new finding by any means.
Okay, let's wrap this up.
Okay. Michael, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
You can hear me. Okay.
I can hear, yeah, I can.
Right.
It's Morgan that's having trouble.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, we're probably have to wrap this up, yeah. I imagine. However, now you hear me. Now everybody hears me. Now
great.
Now we're going away. Everybody hears me. Of course. That's been my life this week. Anyway, Morgan Jennings-Woods, it was lovely to have you on the show. We loved your insights. And as things develop in this new and burgeoning industry, we'll be happy to have you on again sometime. I guess you can't hear me again.
Nope.
Oh, man.
All right, we're going to sign off.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if we're going to have a guest on Friday, but I've got plans to find a couple of them. So hopefully by Friday morning in Sydney or Thursday night at 8 o'clock, we're going to have somebody interesting, probably from Sydney. So on that, for Michael Lane and Sean Key and the News Desk, Center for Space Commerce and Finance, this is Thomas Andrew Olson. Keep watching the skies. I'm telling you. That's it.